Well, good morning, everybody. We're going to transition. We know the conversation is deep and it's heavy, and we hope you had some time to connect with somebody at your table, get to know who they are, and have coffee later. My name is Jose Zabala. I am part of City Ministry Network as well as various community organizations. I get to see day-to-day opportunities where we're able to serve in our city, in our county, and I get the distinct privilege this morning to introduce not only a great guy, a good man with many titles, but one of my good friends. So I get to do that this morning. So Ruben Imperial, he's Deputy Executive Officer with the Stanislaus County Chief Executive Office. He was born and raised in Bakersfield, but I call him a Modestoian. He has a BA and master's degree from Stan State. He's married to Carolina and has one daughter. And Ruben Imperial, one great characteristic that he has is that he sees the good in everybody. He's given me the opportunity to many doors. He's one of my best friends, one of my mentors. He's a loving man, loving gentleman with a great heart for our community. And so with that, I want to introduce Ruben Imperial.
Thank you. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. Good to be here at Catalyst. Really excited to be here with a lot of friends. And I look out, and there's a lot of friends here today, so I really appreciate that. And one of our many friends is Marvin Jacobo. And when he invited me, we're good friends, so sometimes I think, well, I don't think it's just with me he's unguarded at times. He goes, Catalyst, the first one of the year, hardly no one ever comes, it's not that many people there. So maybe you should speak, And I'm sure we all have those moments with Marvin, so. I feel bad every time me or Joe Duran gets up here, we tell something funny about Marvin, but it's so easy. I mean, he just makes it just makes it so easy for us to do that. So, again, thank you, and I look forward to this conversation today. And I'm going to talk a little bit about focus on prevention and broadly, and then I'm going to talk specifically about homelessness and what we're learning and what I think are this next few months and this next year opportunities that have not been present for our community before. And I want to first talk about focus on prevention in general is a countywide initiative that aims to improve the quality of life for our residents and families through coordinated prevention efforts that worked across multiple sectors. And I'm going to talk about a few things here. I'm going to talk about what quality of life means, and I'm going to talk about prevention, and I'm going to talk about multiple sectors. And Focus on Prevention was launched about 2 or 3 years ago, and Supervisor Withrow, who's here today, Brad Hahn and Marvin Jacobo, and then CEO Stan Risen, were all part of these initial conversations about what could happen if we did come together as a community and work across sectors that we've not traditionally worked together on and some of the big problems in our community. And the original conversations were around strengthening families and working with families. But as we began those conversations, homelessness began to become an issue that was right in front of us and we just couldn't ignore. And there was a decision made to embrace that issue, to begin to work on it. And since then, we have been on a ride, I must say. It's been something that I think in our community, and not just in Modesto, not just in Stanislaus County, but in the state of California, has just become an issue that is at the forefront of many of our news stories, many of our political conversations across the state. And there are many drivers and many issues of homelessness in our state, in our county, in our city that we can talk about. And I'm not going to go into those details. I'm going to talk about the opportunities that we're seeing right now in front of us that I think is worth a conversation here today, especially with our faith sector partners. So when we talk about quality of life, our interest was in these areas, that our families are healthy, and that includes physical health, mental health, emotional health, and spiritual health. And being here at CMN, a faith-based community, we do realize and value the importance that although there are things that we can do to provide shelter or services, A large number of people that live in our community have some type of faith or adhere to some type of faith. So it's very important that as we're working in our community, whether it's strengthening families or homelessness, that we have ways for people to connect up to their faith community. We had some, in our beginning work with Focus on Prevention around homelessness, we had many conversations in our community with individuals who were homeless at one point in their life. And we asked them what made the difference in their life. And although they did say programs were helpful and services were helpful, the majority of those folks that turned their life around, and this is just in our community, in the city of Modesto and Stanislaus County, we're saying that faith was a big part of their turnaround, and faith was a big part of their recovery. So we know that it's valuable, it's important, as we're talking about these conversations, to have the faith community there with us. Strong and safe neighborhoods, first-rate education, a healthy economy, and then, of course, that we're working to prevent and reduce homelessness. So this is what we mean by the quality of life for our community, and this is the ultimate aim of Focus on Prevention. And although our work over the last 3 years has really focused on homelessness, we're now beginning to move in the area of strengthening families. I'm going to share a little bit about that and what we're doing. Now, these are what we mean by multiple sectors, and you can see these are all the 10 sectors of our community that we feel are important to be at the table, and we have a leadership council that provides leadership for Focus on Prevention. Brad Hahn, he's the co-chair along with Cindy Duenas of our Stewardship Council that provides overarching leadership for Focus on Prevention and our efforts. And we also have 26 members on this group, 2 or 3 sector representatives. The faith sector is Jim Applegate, the pastor of Redeemer, Marvin Jacobo, and Ross Lee is also the faith sector representatives on our Stewardship Council. And we're going to share a little bit about some work that they're doing in the next few months that I think will be important, and it's new information for us. So these are the 10 sectors of Focus on Prevention, and beyond the Stewardship Council, we've engaged other sectors and other sector leaders in our planning efforts, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well in a few minutes. So just really quick, an overview. I'm going to talk a lot about today Focus on Prevention and what we're doing around homelessness and the work that we've been doing to strengthen our community system of care. And we're going to talk about the work that we've done to expand outreach and engagement. There's been some work that we've done over the last year to do that. We've improved our coordinated entry. We're beginning to work on housing. We've done a lot of work in improving our service system, support services, and there's some capacity building that we're doing, including evolving our governance structure in the leadership for Focus on Prevention, homelessness efforts that we'll be talking about as well. But I just want to point your attention really quick to strengthening families. Ultimately, Focus on Prevention wants to focus on all families in our community, and that's our aim. But our Stewardship Council decided that they would like to work in a smaller population first to learn and to see how we can affect families that are involved in our criminal justice system. So right now, we are working with our probation department and our sheriff's office, and we are working on a family engagement strategy for those families of individuals that are in our criminal justice system in our community, specifically our day reporting center. So we've been working with our probation and our sheriff's department and Marvin and some of our other faith sector partners and community partners over the last several months have been working. We've been doing interviews with folks out at the day reporting center and working, and we'll be launching a pilot in early this year to see how we can connect with the families that are going through our criminal justice system and how we can support those families. And there's a lot of work going on internally as well within the probation department. We have a new REACT Center. It's a rehabilitative side of our jail system. A lot of investment's been made to focus on rehabilitation in our jail. And so now we're partnering with our sheriffs and our probation to work with those families specifically. And you'll be hearing more, I hope, at Catalyst about what we're doing now in the area of strengthening families. And that's the work I know a lot of folks have been waiting for and wanting to get involved, and we're beginning to have some progress there. Interestingly enough, when we started to work with the families originally, our first pilot and our first test of this, the families that we talked to, again, just as with homelessness, They talked about the need to be connected with their faith. And they shared with us stories that as their loved ones been incarcerated, that their interest has been to connect to communities of faith. And they were very specific about how important to them their faith is, and how important it is that as they attend church or they re-engage back in their recovery with their loved one that's been locked up, how important their faith was and how important it is that they get connected to a church. And so even as with homelessness, our first planning efforts resulted in them saying really how important their faith was. As we started to talk to the families of those that are involved in our criminal justice system, they're saying the same thing. They're saying that faith is very important to them. So as we begin to broaden our efforts, though, in 2019, we're now putting together what's called our Community Indicator Report. You've seen those result areas. We're now beginning to work on a report that we would produce on an annual basis that shows how we're doing in those result areas. And we're working on the community indicators for each of those result areas and seeing how we're doing. And that information will be used to engage all of our sectors and say, how are we making progress on these result areas? How are we doing in these areas that we really care about? And what can our sectors and what can our partners do? So these are the things that we're working on in terms of strengthening families. So I'm going to move right into the area of homelessness. So what we know and what we've learned about homelessness is that when it comes to this issue, there is, I think, no doubt that there is a lot of people that want to help. There are folks that want to do something. The challenges that we face in our community is, what do we do? And often, where do we do it? And so those are conversations that we know when it comes to homelessness are very challenging. And we've experienced those challenges over the last couple of years as we're bringing forth recommendations and proposals. And homelessness is one of those issues, as I said, not just in our community, but across the state, that there is a lot of debate and there's a lot of conversations about what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing to do. And those conversations continue to happen in our community. And I think what I'll be sharing with you today is the result of many conversations in terms of in our community, how do we begin to respond to this problem? I will say that homelessness is at the forefront of many conversations that we're having in our chief executive office, in our city halls, or our city managers' offices across the state, or across the county. And this is a priority or the priority issue in our community for 2019. And as I say that, though, this is also, I think, opportunities, as I shared in the beginning of the presentation, that we've not seen before in our community. And that's why it's exciting. I'm excited to be here today to share this invitation with you. So this is what we know about homelessness, and this is one of the numbers that we share often. It's called our point-in-time count. And in just a few weeks, we'll be going out over a 2-day period and physically counting everybody that we see that is homeless in our community. This is a 1-day-a-year event. We go out and physically count. We go out and interview. We have a couple of hundred volunteers that go out through the community, and we find folks that are homeless. These are the numbers, 1,400 in 2016, 2017 to 1,600, and then you have this massive reduction in the count in 2018. I wish I could have said that all our efforts have resulted in that drastic decline of homelessness, but what we feel, though, had happened was that there was just some transfer of leadership in terms of the point-in-time count, so that's really not a massive reduction. It was just we did not count as many people that were out there as we did in the previous year. This year, we have Kyle DeJesus. I think he was here a couple of months ago, recruiting volunteers. This year, we have a much more robust effort in terms of our homelessness point-in-time count, and we'll be monitoring that closely to see what the 2019 number is. But we think on average every year it's about 1,500 people. The number I wanted to share with you is the number of unsheltered. So not when we count folks, we count the folks that are out on the street that we see, and we also count the folks that are sheltered that night. And the folks that were unsheltered that we counted out in the street that weren't counted in the shelters, because those are folks that are considered homeless, was over 600 people. So on any given night, there's probably 600 to 800 people in our county sleeping unsheltered in the streets somewhere. So as we've evolved our planning with focus on prevention, the concept is simple. We do want to get folks to shelter and housing. That's the goal. We needed to improve our coordinated access system, that we didn't have a clear pathway to get to those shelter and housing supports in our community. Basically, if you were homeless, we have about 6 or 7 different housing providers. All of them have their own database, their own list of things that they require to get into housing. It is a very unorganized system. We've done some work to improve that over the last year or so. Coordinated access, outreach, and engagement. We learned that folks that are out in the street, they're not going to come in at times, so we need to go out and find them. And so these are the original ideas around our plan. Supportive services, peer and community support. It's not enough just to provide housing or coordinate access or go find them. We need to work on behavioral health, basic needs, employment training, peer and community support. So I wanted to give you a little bit of detail of what we've been doing over the last couple of years. So when it comes to shelter and housing, on any given night, for tonight, just to give you an example, these are the number of people that will be helped tonight, okay? So let me explain this. When it comes to housing, we have 20, 30 plus different programs in our county, probably about 7, 8 housing providers. So every day right now, there's a community system of care out there that is helping people. And on any average night, the number of people that we're housing in our shelters is about 525 people. So on every given night, we have about 500 to 600 people every night that are being sheltered through the variety of programs. We have a program of transitional housing. These are things like Salvation Army and the Gospel Mission and Pathways. These are programs. These are not emergency shelters. These are places where people can be housed from anywhere from 90 days to 18 months. And there's often programming associated with them. So on any given night tonight, there's about 207 people being helped tonight in a transitional housing program. Rapid rehousing. This is a program that we do through our community services agency, and this is basically a homelessness prevention program. And basically what happens is we work with families, and this is primarily for adults with families. We help them get off the street. We help them initially with some rent and some down payment assistance, but the expectation is that they get jobs and they're able to sustain themselves, and that help tapers off after a few months, after a year. And tonight, there'll be about 34 people, or today, there'll be about 34 people that are being helped on a daily basis. Now, this is on a daily basis. Now, those 525 people, they're different people every night, but on every day, this is the capacity that we have every day to serve those people. And overall, this system, over the last 2 years, have served about 4,000 plus people. And I'm going to explain a little bit about how we know that. Permanent supportive housing. This is for individuals with severe mental illness or disabilities. These are folks that if there wasn't that support, they would be homeless. So every night, like for instance tonight, these folks, about 500 plus people are being helped. So when we talk about focus on prevention, when we talk about helping, there are hundreds, there are 1,000 people almost every night that are being helped by our community, by our service providers, and that is a lot of it's preventing homelessness, and a lot of it is getting people out of homelessness. So this is what's happening every night. This is existing, right? One of the things that we've been working on with coordinated access, and you've heard a lot about this probably on the news, is our one-stop shop access center, and we're getting close to some new recommendations and proposals about that. But one of the things I wanted to share with you here is this central database and assessment. A couple of years ago, as Focus on Prevention started, all of the homelessness service providers in our community agreed to enter into a shared database. And I mentioned that 4,000 number a few minutes ago. They started to enter into a shared database. And over the last couple of years, our data in terms of homelessness data has been vastly improved. And over the last couple of years, they've been entering into this database. We had a first year, it was pretty good data, it was valid, it was certified. The second year, we got some better data. And the data that we now know when it comes to homelessness, you heard the 1,600 point time count. And I don't want to share too much about the data because it's still being analyzed, and we'll be sharing that information publicly within the next few months. But what we do know through that HMIS system, through that database, that new sharing of information, is that we served 4,000 plus people over the last couple of years. And so that is new information for us in our community, that we know we have 1,600 people on any given night that are homeless, but over the last couple of years, we have served over 4,000 people. And a good number of those people, we were able to actually either prevent homelessness or help them get out of homelessness. And again, we'll be sharing the data in the next few months in more detail. But the point is that on any given night, we're serving about 1,000 people. But over the last couple of years, we've served 4,000. And so there's a lot of work happening. There's a lot of systems work that's being done to improve the system. And the other part here is their outreach and engagement team. One of the other things is that the community felt that was needed was that we did need an outreach and engagement team. And over the last year, we started an outreach and engagement center that's in downtown Modesto. We have now a care team that goes out and outreaches for those that are in severe distress, whether it's through mental illness or substance abuse issues. So we've identified 143 individuals that we now have a team that goes out and really works to target and find those individuals. So this is what's happening with our community system of care. And the story is that when it comes to getting out of homelessness, it's not just housing, it's not just coordinated access, and it's not just outreach. We do need those supports and community supports, and that's where you all come in as a faith sector. And as I've said before, we have had many instances where folks have said faith is so important to them. I'm gonna kind of move through these slides because my countdown is moving forward really quick. So what we're learning, and I think one of the conversations that CMN and Love Modesto is helping us with over the next few months, and it's a conversation we want to engage with you today. There's 1,000 people that I just mentioned to you today that every single day are seeking help. These are folks that are in shelters, in our programs, and they're trying to turn their lives around. They're trying to get back on track. And how do we connect what I believe are the thousands of people that want to help, especially in the faith sector, with the 1,000 that need help? And that's been one of the biggest challenges that we've had in our community, is how do we connect folks? With our Outreach and Engagement Center, we had 900 people walk in our Outreach and Engagement Center from the time we opened up in October to June. About 44% of them were open and receiving help. How do we get the other sectors? Because those support services are not enough. Professional services aren't enough. How do we get our community to support those 900 people that walked in seeking help? Community assessment, we're out there seeking the people the most distressed in our community. How do we begin to connect with those, and how do we begin to engage them? Right now, just with our shelter, you know, the 1,000 people that I said we're helping every night, these are the concrete numbers. 225 people will be at the Gospel Mission tonight, 150 at the Salvation Army. 20 families right now are out at the Empire Migrant Camp trying to turn their lives around. There's about 14 people or 4 or 5 families out at Family Promise. Several to 10 churches right now are helping them, doing everything they can to help those families get out of homelessness. There's 7 youth at Hutton House tonight that need help. There's 25 individuals out in Patterson, the host house, trying to turn their lives around, trying to get job skills, trying to be entrepreneurs, trying to start businesses, actually. There's 61 women and children out at the Turlock Gospel Mission tonight. There's 50 individuals out at the We Care shelter in Turlock. There's 400 people at Beard Brook Park right now that need help. The big question for us today and the learning for us as a community is how do we connect the thousands of people that want to help with the 1,000 people that we know that are seeking help and that can use the help. Excuse me. How we can help, of course, we're always looking for financial support. Any of those organizations that I just listed could use financial support. Basic need donations, volunteers, food services. Every night, I think 400 or 500 people are being fed every day through the Gospel Mission and the Salvation Army. Just a tremendous operations going on. And I think one of the biggest things that we need, that the faith sector, that we can do is the area of peer and community support. The vast majority of people that we've worked with have said it wasn't just a program. I don't think I've ever heard someone say this program or this services saved my life. When people talk about turning around their lives, it was someone that helped them, someone that took time to care for them. All those service providers that you see there, they all could use in some way some type of peer and community support. Housing partnership. We need landlords that are willing to give people a second chance. There are people, all those 1,000 people have begun to turn their life around, and they've blown their credit history. They've blown their rental history. We need folks to give people a chance and give them an opportunity to turn their lives around and get a house. And homeless prevention is another big area is that we can do. It's a huge cost savings. If you can prevent someone from becoming homelessness, it's often cheaper to do that than to try to get someone else. So I know I'm way over my time, but I did want to share with you some partnerships that we're working on. The CMN and Love Modesto and the United Way are working right now, and you're going to be hearing about that in the next probably 30 to 60 days of an organized effort to organize the faith community and our neighborhood communities to support all of those vast efforts that I just mentioned to you. How do we connect the faith community and the neighbor community to those individuals that are seeking help? We have very good local providers, the Gospel Mission, the Salvation Army. There are many folks doing great work. There are some improvements that we know we need to make, and that is evident. But those improvements in terms of service delivery will only go so far. We do need this peer and community support, people that come alongside people in ways that help them attain their goals. Beardbrook, I want to introduce Al Roulette, the CEO of Turning Point, and Christina Kenny. They're right here in the front table. The county and the city has just partnered with them to help us monitor and to coordinate what's going on at Beardbrook Park. If you want to help, Turning Point now is coordinating and is the point for what's happening out there. There's some changes going on in the next week. There's going to need to be a lot of help there to help people get out of homelessness, out of that park. And we're already seeing results in that area. And if you want to help in any of those areas, Kyle DeJesus is here. If you could raise your hand. That's his cell phone number there. If you want to be involved, to get involved in any of these efforts that I just laid out here, there was a lot of work. There's a lot of partnership here. And there's one last thing I want to mention. There's another effort that we're doing with Downtown Streets Team. I think it's on here. We just launched a new program called Downtown Streets Team. This is an organization that's going to be able to help hire people straight out of Beard Park, out of downtown that are homeless right now, help just basically give them jobs. We need our business leaders and our community partners to step up in that way. As these folks start to get their employment history and get their lives back on track, do we have business leaders in our community that can help them get to more permanent employment? If you're interested in any of that, Kyle DeJesus is there. I'm here. Marvin is our faith sector representative. Brad Hahn's there. If you're interested in any of that, there is plenty of work to do. There's plenty of opportunities to help. And with that, I will conclude. Thank you.